Hey, A&P here. This is Dr. R.J. Jones checking in. This is A&P II Lab 2 Video 5. So now we need to talk about the wire people. So it's kind of hard to see the whole wire person and all the details of the wire person. So I'm going to be moving in closer and moving out to try and give you both perspectives as I can remember to. So we're gonna start with, this is the heart. It's in the mediastinum. So be your left ventricle and your right ventricle, your left auricle and your right auricle. So this is your pulmonary trunk with pulmonary arteries. And then at red, need a stick, sorry. I can't reach it. So that red thing there we go, will be your pulmonary veins carrying oxygenated blood back in. So here on this side, you've got blue pulmonary arteries and red pulmonary veins. So that right there is the entirety of the pulmonary circuit. So in the pulmonary circuit, arteries are blue and veins are red. For the entire rest of wire person, we are in, oh look, there's my shoes, hello. We will be in the systemic circuit, so with the exception of the pulmonary circuit that we just looked at, the arteries will be red and the veins will be blue. Okay, so we have the heart, this is the liver, in between is the diaphragm. How do you spell diaphragm? D-I-A-P-H-R-A-G-M. That's that sneaky silent letter that absolutely makes a difference. If you skip the G, you look like you don't know what you're talking about, and y'all are my students now because you're watching my videos, so you need to know what you're talking about. So always include the silent G, which is the next to last letter of diaphragm. D-I-A-P-H-R-A-G-M. If you're pronouncing for spelling, that's the diaphragm. Okay, that's not how you pronounce it, but just to remember. All right, so let's start with the aorta. So be your ascending aorta, your aortic arch. You can see the aorta continues down behind. Now, through the level of the diaphragm, it's the thoracic aorta. Below the thoracic aorta, this whole tube, not sure if I can point to it with the camera and the stick at the same time. Okay, let me point with the stick and then look back through the camera. Okay, so this whole descending giant red tube is the abdominal aorta because this is inferior to the diaphragm. Excellent. Okay, so now the branches off the aortic arch, and I'm going to turn this around. Now, learning left from right on the wire people is difficult, but the first question is always, are you looking at the front? Are you looking at the back? And this, my friends, is the back. So the first branch off of the aortic arch is the brachiocephalic trunk. I mentioned in a previous video that this is an unpaired artery. There's only one. So you don't say left or right with this unless you want to lose all the credit. This is simply the brachiocephalic artery, brachiocephalic trunk. It splits into the right common carotid artery, which goes up the right side of the neck to help feed your brain, and the right subclavian artery. And the first branch off the subclavian will be the right vertebral artery, and these run up through the vertebrae. So this is the first branch off of the aortic arch. It's the subclavian, this one's the subclavian. It's the brachiocephalic artery from here until it splits. And then it gets two new names, right common carotid artery, right subclavian artery. The second branch off of the aorta is the left common carotid artery. Now the commons tend to split into an internal and an external. So the internal carotid artery will go through the carotid canal and help feed the circle of Willis. The external carotid artery goes up the outside of the skull and is part of why your scalp bleeds like crazy. The third branch off of the aorta is the left subclavian artery. And the first branch off of the subclavian is the vertebral. So, back up a little bit. These two arteries on the other side of the stick here, or in front of the stick, are the two vertebral arteries, and they come together to make the basilar artery, which is this part. And the basilar artery also feeds the circle of Willis. Okay, so on this right-hand side, okay, so we're still from the back here, so let me flip this around. Okay, on the front, and let me zoom in on the front, and you can see why we did all of those from the back, because with the veins in the way, it's kind of hard to see. So you can see the Brachiocephalic Trunk, the right common carotid artery, the right subclavian, the right vertebral, the left common carotid artery, the left subclavian. It's kind of hard to see where they come off the aorta, so that's why we looked at those from the back. But from here, you can clearly see the right subclavian artery, the right common carotid artery, the left common carotid artery, and where it splits into the internal carotid artery, the external carotid artery, and you can see the circle of Willis. You can see the two vertebral arteries in the back, that they come together to make the basilar artery, which also feeds the circle of Willis. So let's follow. On this right-hand side, the arteries have been cut. I mean, you do still have arteries on the right side of your body, of course, but the arteries have been cut so that you can focus on the veins. And on the right-hand side, it's all veins. And on the left-hand side, the veins have been cut so that you can focus on the arteries. You do also, of course, have veins on the left-hand side of your body. They're just cut here so that you can focus your studies. Okay, so we've got the left subclavian is the third branch off of the aortic arch. And then here in the region with the zip tie, this is the axillary artery. And axillary is the armpit region, which is a different term than auxiliary. Auxiliary is AUX, axillary is AX. So those are different terms with different spellings. So then it goes through the arm region, which is the brachium. So that's the brachial artery. So we've changed names based on location. So it comes out of the aortic arch as the left subclavian artery, and it's subclavian because it goes under the clavicle. And then this region will go through the armpit, under the arm. So this is the axillary artery, and then the arm and the brachium right next to the humerus. So this will be the brachial artery. And then it splits to go down the two bones in the forearm, the radius and the ulna. So which of those is medial and which is lateral? The radius or the ulna? So which one is lateral? And lateral in anatomical position would be thumb side. So lateral is your radius bone, because remember, I don't think I can do this, but right there at the base of the thumb is where you take your radial pulse. So this, on the thumb side, lateral artery is the radial artery, and the medial is the ulnar artery. And they come together at the palmar arches, and these are in anastomosis. Let me spell that for you. I don't think that's in your booklet. Anastomosis. Yeah, that looks better. Okay, so this is where you have a duplicate blood supply. And you see these are the digital arteries that feed the fingers. They have a duplicate blood supply. If you were to break or pinch off or something, the ulnar artery right here, the blood would go through the radial artery, up the palmar arches and backwards, so that your digital arteries will for sure always be supplied. So also you should know that the digital arteries go up the sides of the fingers, and that the arteries tend to run with nerves. We have a term for that too. It's one word, sorry, neurovascular. And then the second word is bundle. So the neurovascular bundle is the tendency of the arteries and the nerves, arteries and veins and nerves, and often the lymph vessels, to run together in one group. Just like when you're building a house, you put all the plumbing together in one spot because it's easier. So the neurovascular bundle for your fingers goes up the sides. That's why if you want a drop of blood, it's usually better to not poke in the center of the pad, but to poke on the side so that you'll get a better drop of blood. So that's why, like my scar right here, I get it to focus on me. Nope. Okay. Anyway, that's why when, we had it for a second. Okay, when they give you stitches, they'll give you a shot on the sides of your fingers. Okay, digital arteries. Where are we on time? That's 11 minutes. All right, so that is Lab 2, A&P II Lab 2 video 5. Thanks as always for tuning in. And education must go on. We will come back with the first branch off of the abdominal aorta, which is the celiac trunk. And let's see, did we finish all of page 15? We didn't go in order. Okay, so yeah, we'll come back here at the top of page 16. So the education must go on. Dr. J out.